The PGA Tour and traditional broadcast golf in general is facing a major problem. And this is evidenced with the Open Championship being yet another event that was down dramatically in ratings. And this is something that we've seen across the board and spoken about widely with most PGA Tour events this year. But now, for the first time, the PGA Tour made a major announcement yesterday that shows what could be a whole new direction and a new way to bring in new fans and younger fans into the game to hopefully right the ship. And we've also seen some dramatic new evidence that guys like Bryson DeChambeau may be taking the torch from Tiger Woods and being the new needle when it comes to golf. But the question is this Bryson effect real, and is it sustainable to create these new events focused largely on new and up-and-coming golf influencers and YouTube creators? And is that truly a path that traditional broadcast golf should follow into the future? In a second, we're going to debate all that and talk about really just how personality-driven the game has become, or maybe could say since Tiger kind of has been for decades, and how much does the game really rely on that? And will this new endeavor really try to bring in some new fans? Before, though, we dig in all that, of course, want to thank this week's sponsor, Titleist. And guys, the Titleist Pro V1 and Pro V1X Left Dash are the most technologically advanced in the game, and they're the ultimate golf ball performance choice. They deliver exceptionally long distance, consistent flight, and unrivaled control. And guys, if you know, I've been playing the Pro V1 for a long time now. I just absolutely love not only the trajectory, that low long game spin, and that maximum short game spin that really helps me hold those greens, especially in those fast and firm conditions. Mike as well, you're now in the Pro V1 Left Dash, which has dramatically helped you with some spin reduction in key areas. But no matter what you end up picking, you're going to get a performance across the board. So to find the right ball for you, make sure you find a fitter near you. If you haven't had the opportunity to go through a ball fitting yet, this is the time to do it. It is an eye-opening experience, and the confidence that comes out of it is just tremendous. So make sure you guys check that out. Outperform your best. Learn more about the Pro V1, Pro V1X, and Pro V1X Left Dash at Titleist.com. Now, Mike, you've heard about this Creator Classic that was recently announced.
Absolutely, man.
Excitement level for it?
I think it's great. I think it's cool. I mean, us being in the space and doing content, like, we can appreciate it. The fact that there are some golfers out there that are on YouTube only, and they're great. And I think some of the things like the Myrtle Beach Classic, stuff like that, I thought it was cool to see that they're getting the opportunity, the George Bryans of the world.
Right.
It's hard to make it to the tour. Like, all the levels you got to go through, the Q schools and the Corn Ferry, and it's, whatever that path is. But the fact that someone from just creating content can have the opportunity, it's interesting if it's going to bring the eyeballs that they're hoping on.
Well, that's just it. And I think in a lot of ways it becomes a very good complement to what's going on. But let's first, for anybody who might have missed this, let's bring you guys up to speed about exactly what this Creator Classic is, because it was just announced. And then I want to talk more in a minute about what we saw and really dig into the numbers, because we saw a vast difference in the ratings for the Open Championship and the Masters as contrasted by what we saw from the PGA Championship and from the US Open, which were both up. Common denominator there to me, Bryson DeChambeau, who, by the way, has really launched his creative career. It's here's a guy who's one of the few who spans both of those worlds. Right. And as a creator, he has seen tremendous numbers and his channel growing tremendously. Now, he won't be part of the Creator Classic because it still falls under the PGA Tour umbrella.
Yes.
Of which Bryson is still not involved. We can talk about that more in a second. But what this is going to be, and we're going to get more information as it comes out. We haven't heard the full field yet. A few of them we've had here on the show before. We're rooting on some of the guys we've had an opportunity to talk to. But what it's going to be, and smartly kind of leading up to that Tour Championship. The Tour Championship being at East Lake. East Lake has also undergone a lot of major renovations, really bringing it back to like the Donald Ross, original that it was, which I'm excited to see. This will be our first real preview of competition there because it will be held on the Wednesday before the Tour Championship. So
wow.
I found that very interesting because you're talking then about true PGA Tour tournament conditions. It is literally the day before the tour event kicks off.
Yeah, super fast greens, 7,500 yards, you name it.
Yeah.
They're getting the full thing.
Well, they're going to be playing the back nine. right? And I would imagine part of that is because you still, do they even, and this is a good question, if you guys know in the comments, let us know, do they do a Pro-Am for that event? It's such a small field. I'm not sure if they do a traditional Pro-Am.
Yeah.
Because that would normally fall on Wednesday, right? So I'm sure there'll be guys who are going to be competing in the Tour Championship. We're going to be using that as a practice round the day before. They don't want to interfere with that. But what they're going to be doing is it's going to be, it's 8 holes of gross stroke play, played over the back 9, with one playoff hole with the top 4 guys in the gross stroke play are going to play in a playoff hole on the last hole. And this is kind of smart, and I'm going to talk about where some of this comes from, of who's producing this and what they've kind of thought through. But it's smart because at the end of the day, none of these guys are, well, save maybe for Wesley Bryan, who's a tour player, right? Yep. None of these other guys, and even George Bryan has played in a few events, but for the most part, they're creators. They're not pro golfers. So it's hard to rely on, like, it might not come down to as tense of an ending, a stroke or two. So they're kind of mixing with that format to keep you engaged the whole time. So what this is going to be, August 28th, 4 p.m. Eastern time, they're going to play on the back 9. It's going to be multiple broadcasts, right? So it's going to be on the PGA Tour's YouTube channel, which is another thing we've seen PGA Tour and others all putting a strong focus on growth in YouTube and distributing their product on YouTube. And I think that's largely because they know that's where a lot of the future lies. A lot of golf is being watched there. We'll get to that in a second. It's also going to be on Peacock, ESPN Plus, and on the PGA Tour Fast platforms. It's going to be a total of 16 creators, some of the big names that you guys are going to recognize. Tyler from Dude Perfect, he's going to be playing, which, again, we're going to think about this as we say it. Personalities. Tyler's always been an exciting person to watch, and they have those roots in golf too, right? Where
is he any good at golf?
He's good, yeah. But again, none of these guys, they're not pros. Let's keep that in mind. Other than Brian Brothers. Par? I think you have to play to a certain handicap to be able to be in this. Sure. If you look at the field that's been announced so far, it seems like all of the better level. Even I'm looking at some of the guys like from Good who are going to be in it. You've got Garrett Clark, but not necessarily some of the other guys who are not up to Garrett's level.
Right.
That they bring their own assets to what they do and their personality and stuff like that, but from a golf standpoint. But Tyler and Dude Perfect, do you remember they did that thing with Bryson
at Augusta,
exactly. Yeah. So they've got those chops as well. You've also got George and Wesley Bryan. Makes a lot of sense. The Bryan Bros.
Makes sense,
right? Fat Perez.
Yeah, I was just going to
say, from Bob Does Sports.
Do you think they asked Tiger in the player advisory board meeting, like, how are we going to save this thing? And he's like, I got 2 words for you, Pat Perez.
I do not. No, I do not.
I mean, he's the modern day John Daly. Great golfer. He has the chance. And he's got the personality. I think people are going to tune in for that guy.
Yeah,
it
does come. Where does this kind of come from? I think a large part of this comes from the brilliant mind of Chad Mumm.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about that. We got some Chad Mumm quotes here in a second. Who, by the way, he's behind Full Swing, and he's behind Pro Shop Studios. He's the founder and president of Pro Shop Studios, which Pro Shop Studios is the one who's doing this in partnership with the PGA Tour, which I think is another important key part of the success of this.
Yeah, Chad Mumm has the biggest access into golf right now. That dude can go anywhere, get anything he wants, and he's making some great content out of it. So
he absolutely is,
no doubt.
And I think that's an important piece of it because we've seen some tests of this, as you're talking about Myrtle Beach, the Q. And largely that was very successful by a lot of metrics. There was other areas where there were some complaints from people production wise of where that was and how that could have been a little bit better. Here now you're going to get the full weight and production of a PGA Tour level event. So what I mean by that, shot link, every shot, TrackMan, tracing shot, real on-screen graphics. This will look like a PGA Tour event.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm curious who the full field is going to be.
Yeah, and as we continue to see that roll out, we'll let you guys know and update you here. But there's a lot of reasons why this is set up for success. The other one is they've got a title sponsor already lined up. It's Blackstone, who's been working into the PGA Tour, and I think this is important too. We've talked here on the podcast like so many times about the difficulties the PGA Tour has been facing with getting sponsors, especially as the price tag goes up and up and up. And if I put myself in the shoes of a potential sponsor, I'm looking at the cost to sponsor a signature event, right? And how that has gone through the roof with the new purses. And then you look at something like this, I would imagine the cost of entry is going to be much, much lower to sponsor this. And there's a potential to receive a similar amount potentially of eyeballs. What that's going to really boil down to is just how strong, and they're really betting on this, how strong the fan base is of these creators from YouTube. Are they going to bring in the kind of numbers that you would see from a traditional PGA Tour event?
And if they do, if it is successful and they're like, holy cow, this works, people care more about these guys than Scotty, then can you see a mini tour for creators or a new tour coming under the PGA Tour umbrella?
It's such a good question, because I think we have to do, and we gotta let this play out to really see how it goes. But and you guys weigh in the comments. What is your take on viewership? Do you care? Do you not care? And I think that it really is separated in a lot of ways. Like, I don't think that they're direct competitors of each other, the product, right?
No, I don't
so
think
I
so.
think that there's a lot of people who watch the PGA Tour for the reasons that they watch the PGA Tour, the big names that they root on, the level and caliber of golf. On the YouTube side, I think that, yes, they're playing golf at a fairly high level, but it's the personalities. Right. They're there to tune in for the personalities. I don't think that, maybe save for George or Wesley Bryan, I don't think there's a guy playing out there who could drop into a PGA Tour event and come sniff the cut.
Right.
I just don't. And that's not to take anything away from these guys. They choose the path they choose. It's a different career. A content creator is a different career.
Yeah, no doubt.
Than a PGA Tour player.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
So I think that's where it's going to get interesting. But that's where I think the real key component of whether this is going to be successful or not, and this is where I think it's good to have a guy like Chad Mumm, steering that ship, because he understands content creation, i.e. Netflix, right? And that was very showcasing the personalities and things like that. This can't just rely on the golf. It can't be like a tour broadcast where you're just watching them play golf with announcers. Yes, you could do some fun things with like getting Bob from Bob Does Sports to do the announcing.
Yeah, of course.
You could do that. But I think that these guys, the reason why fans love watching them is because their personalities are showcased on their YouTube channels. And I think they've got to be mic'd up. And I think you've got to get those personalities.
But
you've got to put them in the brunt. They absolutely do.
Watch
you
Trent
can't
from foreplay.
You're not going to watch a guy necessarily spraying it all over the place.
Exactly.
Now, even Trent pulls a very big audience of people watching him try to break 100, break 90, whatever it may be.
But that's his market. That's his lane.
And if you watch those, it's him speaking through it.
Yeah.
Their banter between each other.
Love it.
I think if you remove that, you have a lesser product.
Yes.
So I think that these guys need to be mic'd up. I think there needs to be walking interviews. I think you need to understand the product of what it is. Now, with that said, there's a possibility of this being very successful. And hopefully, I think the most important thing here, what the PGA Tour and broadcast golf in general wants to do, is not so much create a standalone product as much as create a product that bridges the gap between the two.
Yes.
So I think what they're going to be using, and even in their announcing, and I think they're going to hammer it home throughout this, is they're going to talk about the creators, they're going to talk about that, but they're going to be talking about East Lake.
Sure.
And they're going to be setting you up for the next day.
Yep.
I think that is the real key. They're going to see the course, they're going to see that, and then I think for a lot of us, it'll be a great perspective to see. I don't know if they'll be playing the exact same length of tees.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not sure. I haven't seen that confirmed yet. If you guys know, drop it in the comments. But for perspective, it'll be very interesting to see what those guys can score on the back nine of East Lake versus when the tour professionals come through the next day, right? But I think the ultimate hope is going to be for the PGA Tour and others to bring in a new audience, the younger audience who's watching these creators on YouTube, and have them be sparked of enough interest that then they're going to want to continue that, and then the next day watch the tournament at East Lake. And I think the way that they can do that is integrating the PGA Tour's message throughout, and somehow like even showcasing some of the players. Because it's funny, from the seat we sit in, we're so aware of the PGA Tour. We've been watching it for so long. I would imagine there are 10 and 12-year-old kids out there who watch Grant Horvat every week.
Sure.
But literally don't know who Scotty Scheffler is.
Right.
As crazy as that sounds.
I know. It's true.
And this is that bridge of that audience. So now as they're watching Grant, they're being told, this is Scottie Scheffler. He won this many times on the PGA Tour. This is why he's exciting to watch. He plays tomorrow. I think that's the hope.
So interesting.
It is.
Yeah. I mean, I think Grant's a guy. I mean, Sid Bryson won't be able to partake in this because it's PGA Tour.
As far as I've heard, I've not heard. I mean, that would be a bombshell.
It would be a bombshell, but he's ultimately the biggest thing in YouTube golf right now. It would be like neck and neck with Grant Horvat, but Bryson edged him out. 1 million followers, just got subscribers. But yeah, man, I'm curious to see how this is going to work out, and I'm curious. Like I said, I'm curious to see if the rest of the field is going to fill up with other people. But you're right; it can't just depend on the golf.
Right. Well, and that's why. Let me give you this take from Chad Mumm, and then I want to get into why we were saying that is Bryson the new needle.
Oh, okay.
Because we're going to dig into some of the, and I know everyone might be sick at this point of hearing about ratings, but unfortunately, it's one of the only real measures of success when we talk about an entertainment product. Which is what it is. Yeah. You know, there's going to be diehards like us who are going to be entertained either way. We watched the entire final round together of the Open Championship. I thought it was exciting. What Xander did was incredible, proved that he should win that thing. But ratings were way down.
Yep.
And that matters to a lot of people, especially when you consider how it's a business. So Chad Mumm, a lot of you may have heard that name from being the producer of Netflix. Very successful now, 2 seasons of Full Swing. He's also the founder of Pro Shop Studios. Pro Shop Studios is the one who's partnering with the PGA Tour to produce this creator classic, right? So what Chad had said is golf is in the middle of an explosion in popularity. And for many young people, some of the biggest stars have emerged on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. The Creator Classic will bring the brightest of these new stars to the biggest stage in golf, giving them a chance to compete in a real PGA Tour environment in front of fans both on-site and all over the world. The combination of these creators, who have millions of loyal fans, and the PGA Tour's unparalleled competitive atmosphere, production value, and massive reach promises to deliver a landmark golf event unlike any other.
Sounds hype.
It does. But that's where he's right. He's saying we're going to take the excitement of these content creators who have amassed a big following, and we're going to bring what we do really well, which is production value, to that. And ideally, it's a formula that really works.
It works. I mean, it definitely does. I mean, and haven't we experienced a little bit? There was like a good tournament not long ago. It was on Peacock. You know, and they had everything kind of legit.
So I think all of these have been kind of stepping stones towards that. And I think there were a lot of them were proofs of concept. And now it's the PGA Tour saying,
like the grand stage.
Let's take a risk on this and let's see if it works. The reason they're doing that is because when you look at these numbers, I think they realize that change is inevitable. They better get out in front of it. I want to dig into those numbers. First, though, I want to thank our other sponsor, FootJoy. FootJoy is the #1 shoe in golf because they offer the widest selection of sizes, styles, and performance options than any other out there. And it is funny because we've experienced them all, whether it's the new Pro SLX, I've been wearing a lot of the Hyperflex.
Yeah, I noticed you like those.
Absolutely.
Nice.
I mean,
the color patterns too.
I'm a coin toss between that and the Premier because comfort, stability, from a performance standpoint, they're both there. And I kind of like it. I like having one of each to vary up that look.
Switch up the look.
Right. Sometimes I want that classic vintagey look that you get.
Go to a nice country club.
And it just, hey, that's the part where we get to have a little bit of fun when we're out there and, mixing up the style on a day-to-day. The nice thing is, no matter what you choose, you're going to get that really great performance.
Sure, no doubt.
So, go out there, check out the Hyperflex, check out the Premier Series, the Pro SLX. There's really something in there for everybody.
Customize your own shoes.
You can even do
that.
Yes.
Amazing. It's endless.
Yeah. There's just endless options out there, which is why we absolutely prefer wearing them. They're really great. And no matter which one you choose, just pick based on your style and your comfort. They're all going to perform excellently for you. So trust the brand that's been #1 forever. Trust your game to FootJoy, the #1 shoe in golf. Now, digging into this is where the writing was on the wall, right? So you've got the Open Championship, Xander Schauffele, historic. Here's a guy who won 2 majors this year. Worst ratings in a decade for that Open Championship. Down 4% versus Harmon's win in 2023, where Harmon kind of ran away with it, right?
Yeah.
And this was a little bit closer down the line.
Until Xander ran off.
Yep, but still not a huge stroke difference.
We think maybe it was the weather. It was like, leak.
So hard to say because I think
too hard.
I think in general the Open Championship is something that is a little bit of a love-hate with it. You know, people love it for the challenge, the weather, and the difference, and other people hate it for that reason. They're used to it.
Sure.
For me, it's one of my absolute favorite majors. I love watching link-style golf, and I love to see who's able to adapt their game to that. Sometimes you'll get like a more link specialist, like a Lowry, who will excel, and I think that's awesome to watch. On the same token, other times you'll get a guy like Xander who just absolutely proves his incredible ability in the game to be able to win, you know, 2 majors at vastly different venues that require vastly different shots.
Yep.
I think that's incredible. So I always enjoy it, but the writing is still on the wall. Ratings were down. NBC and Peacock drew 3.39 million viewers for that. Which
it wasn't even like competing with anything else. There's nothing else going on in the world,
right?
Sports wise,
and this is where they're starting to see, like what are we missing out here, right? Because you got the oldest major, one of the 4 majors, pulling that 3.39 million views, and then you look at a guy like Bryson, who, granted, I think his video with Trump was a little bit of an outlier because it's such a cultural moment when we're coming up to an election. The timing was, but 10 million views on that video.
Sure.
And this is not, I mean, it's an outlier a little bit, right? But it's not unheard of for him, Grant Horvat, you know, Bryan Brothers, to pull 1 million views. Bob Does Sports.
Especially a big personality coming on their
2
channel.
2 million views, right? So if you're looking at YouTube videos pulling 2 million views on the regular with an outlier of 10 million views every once in a while, and then the Open Championship is 3.39 million views. Now, they're not directly comparable because there's live views and there's overtime and replay views are a little different. YouTube still no one has been able to pull a live audience of 3 million watching all at once. No one's done that yet, but doesn't mean it can't be done. And it might not eventually be done.
I just wonder if people are just watching less TV and catching highlights nowadays. Is it just a trend we're seeing? Well, but then again, the U.S. Open was a complete outlier.
And so going through some more of these numbers. So again, just making that case, it was the lowest viewed Open Championship since Zach Johnson won at St. Andrews in 2015. On the other side of that, right? So half the majors saw this decrease in ratings. The Masters was the other one. Masters was down 20% in 2024 versus 2023, right?
Yep.
However, this is the big one. Both the PGA Championship and the U.S. Open were both up. The PGA Championship was up 10% in ratings. The U.S. Open, highest ratings in 11 years. Now, you could say, well, Xander also won the PGA Championship, but who was right there at his heels?
For him?
Bryson DeChambeau, waiting to see if there's a playoff on the range. Right to the last moment, Bryson was in it, right? Then Bryson, in dramatic, exciting fashion, wins the U.S. Open. Makes you wonder, how much of this is personality driven? How much was Bryson the reason those 2 majors were up and the others were down? Because
so much is the answer.
maybe it's so much, I just don't know if all the weight goes on Bryson. There's other factors. Look at the Open Championship. Rory McIlroy, Bryson, Hovland, Tiger Woods all missed the cut. Right? So now there's each one of those is going to weigh a little bit into it. Rory to a certain extent. Once Rory was out, it was like there's a certain fan base that might drop off. Bryson's out, fan base drops off. But it really makes me wonder, how much then truly is golf, from an entertainment standpoint, personality driven? Right? Big personalities, are they the ones that bring big viewers? Bryson DeChambeau right now is kind of on the tip of everyone's tongue as the forefront of that. For a long time, it was Tiger. It was the Tiger effect. Is Bryson next? Is it now the Bryson effect? Because Bryson is the one who straddles these lines. Bryson will bring the young audience who wants to be on YouTube and aspire to be YouTubers, but will also bring the young or whatever audience you want to call it, who want to see the best pros win.
Yep.
Here's a major champion.
Yeah.
So Bryson is really the case point that I think a lot of people will be looking at closely.
And the PGA Tour probably knows that they need to get him back somehow, right? You got to think.
Well, or
Like he's
is the
becoming
other
new Tiger,
option
but for the other side? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now this is where it comes into something we talk about all the time is will there be a merger? Will they come back together? Whatever it may be. But I think what you're going to see is a more and a continued investment in the personalities of the players and getting to know the players. And I think part of that was Netflix Full Swing. I think that was an entry point. I think you'll see the PGA Tour, and especially PGA Tour Enterprises, as they have cash injections, really look to put a lot of their resources and weight into getting guys this is their business, like Chad Mumm, and be like, get out there and get these guys be known. But I don't think there's a better way to do it than when you turn the camera on yourself and get on YouTube. And I think that's what Bryson did. So I think you'll see a lot more guys following that model. There'll be guys who don't care, who aren't concerned with that. I don't want to speak for anyone, so I'm not going to say someone's name there. I don't even have really one in mind. But I could think just generally there might be guys you're winning on tour and you don't see there's no real reason for you to put the extra work in to also be a YouTube personality.
They don't even have the time. They don't even know how to do it.
But there'll be others who do and they step into that role.
Sure.
But this makes me wonder, is this Creator Classic, is it the bridge that golf wanted to bring the new people in? Or is it more so that golf will always be the way it has been, which is that the top players are going to be the ones who bring the eyeballs, but to really double down on those, they got to become personalities that people get insight into.
Yeah, and there's no doubt, like the tour, like they're losing money by not having a guy like Bryson come defend a title at the Rocket Mortgage Classic. Like that wasn't long ago. Like it would have lit up ticket sales if Bryson was in that.
Yeah.
But he couldn't play in it. But what's interesting enough, I'm thinking more about Netflix season 3, which is most likely probably coming. They're probably going to lean heavy into Bryson, Xander, and the whole thing with Scotty getting arrested. Like it's going to be an epic season.
The question is though, will they? Because what I'm wondering is Netflix.
Why wouldn't they?
Well, because Full Swing is still a PGA Tour production for the most part.
They had Brooks in the first one, and
they did as when they were leaving, but now, really, Bryson no longer has any relationship to the PGA Tour, right? So if the PGA Tour controls any of that narrative, would they really want them following a guy around who doesn't play on the PGA Tour and has nothing to do with the PGA Tour anymore?
It's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw bits and pieces of guys like Mito, like Pereira. Remember when he blew it at Southern Hills?
Yeah.
They did a piece on him. He's a live guy. I don't know if he was at live yet when he did it, but I got to think, I don't know how it's going to work, but people will tune into Full Swing to see Bryson.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah. So you guys weigh in and let us know. Will you be watching the Creator Classic first and foremost? Do you have any interest in it, right? And secondly, do you feel like this is that kind of path forward? Is this that bridge to take what is happening, like this kind of grassroots booming thing that is content creators who are coming into the golf and creating something very new? Right, like I said, I just don't think these are the guys who are going to be competing directly against PGA Tour players. I don't think their intention is to have this as a pathway into the PGA Tour. I think their intention is to share the game in the way that they enjoy doing so. Mm-hmm. Is it the bridge that the PGA Tour was looking for to bring some of the eyeballs that may have been starting to fall off as evidenced by this ratings? Let us know in the comments what you think. We'll continue to watch it closely and we'll continue to report on it. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you in the next one.